Home Secretary Suella Braverman has warned millions, if not billions, that's the word she uses in an article in the Daily Mail today, billions of asylum seekers could come to the UK without her planned immigration crackdown.
She's defended the government's controversial new plan to stop asylum seekers from crossing the Channel. Despite warnings, the new legislation is likely to be in breach of human rights laws. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, joins us now. Very good morning to you. 45,000 in boat crossings in the past year. You say there are 100 million people displaced around the world and likely billions more eager to come here if possible. On what planet is that likely? And how is that not inflammatory language? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation to join you this morning. There are potentially 100 million people around the world who are currently displaced. That's an estimate provided for by the UN. That's people who are being displaced because of conflict, persecution, environmental factors, people who are on the move. Many of them are heading to the United Kingdom. We saw over 45,000 people come here on small boats alone last year. This is an unsustainable level of a problem that we've got, and it's now necessary for us to take steps to stop it.
There are 100 million displaced people worldwide. That is true. Only a quarter of them have left their own country. So even the 100 million figure doesn't hold up, let alone the billions that you have flagged in the Daily Mail this morning.
I think we can look at, we can argue about the numbers of the millions of people around the world who would like to come in the United Kingdom.
It's not an argument. Only 26 million have even left their own country. And 45,000 were in boats coming over to the UK.
Yes,
so yes, what we're dealing with here is tens of thousands, isn't it?
What we're dealing with is an unsustainably high number on any count of people coming here illegally, not just in the last year, but actually over the last few years. Since 2018, 85,000 people came here on small boats. If you're suggesting to me that that's an appropriate and acceptable level, then I would respectfully disagree with you.
I am not
disputing
that it's an ethical issue, whether you think it's acceptable or not, but it is a fact that we are dealing with tens of thousands, and you have used the word billions. And I think that people want you to explain the justification for the use of the word billions when it is a fact that there's only tens of thousands have made their way here on the boats.
I'll tell you what the real world impact on your viewers is. It's 45,000 people who have arrived here illegally last year in small boats, sometimes coming here on a fatal journey, tragically. It's £6 million a day being spent on hotel accommodation in cities and towns around the United Kingdom. It's 100,000 cases waiting for a decision in our system, during which time we have to accommodate and support people at huge cost to the taxpayers. £3 billion a year spent on this of taxpayers' money. I think those are the real-world impacts in the United Kingdom on the British taxpayer. We need to stop the boats so we can stop that that problem progressing.
So much of this debate, particularly in the last 2 or 3 days, it seems now to be centring on the use of language, and obviously those questions have just been put to you. Gary Lineker, the commentator and prolific tweeter, there are calls for him to be sacked by the BBC today because he's likened your rhetoric in the Commons yesterday to that of Nazi Germany's in the 1930s. Craig McKinley, the MP for South Thanet, Conservative MP, he says Mr Lineker should be sacked by the BBC. Do you think he should be sacked for likening your rhetoric to that of Nazi Germany in the 1930s?
I'm very disappointed by Gary Lineker's comments, and I think equating our measures, which are lawful, necessary and fundamentally compassionate, to 1930s Germany is irresponsible, and I disagree with that characterisation. I'm delivering measures because we are on the side of the British people. The British people are fed up with this problem.
Do you think he should resign? Do you think he should resign or be sacked?
Well, that's a matter for the BBC, and they will resolve that. But if you mentioned my colleague from Kent, I'd invite Mr. Lineker to visit Kent and see what the communities in Kent and Dover, but actually all around the United Kingdom, are feeling about this issue. People are fed up seeing an undermining of our asylum system, an abuse of our generosity. And I do believe that these measures are on side with what the vast majority of the British people want to see.
Would you welcome the BBC sacking Gary Lineker? Would you welcome it?
Listen, I've made clear I'm disappointed by his comments. This is a matter for the BBC to manage. What I'm focused on is delivering these measures to stop the boats. That's why we've delivered a scheme which will make clear that if you arrive here illegally, you'll be detained and swiftly removed. That's how we're going to stop people making this journey in the first place. And that's why I'm here to explain those measures.
You've just said in your response to your disappointment with Gary Lineker exercising his right to free speech and criticising the policy that it is lawful. You don't know that it's lawful yet, do you?
The government's view, and my view, is that our measures are lawful, that we are complying with our international law obligations and that we are complying with obligations contained in the Refugee Convention, in the European Convention on Human Rights, and in our trafficking and modern slavery laws. So we are confident that our measures are lawful. But we have made clear that we are testing legal arguments. We're running novel legal arguments.
But it's been widely reported this morning that the government's own panel of lawyers are advising you that there's a bigger than 50% chance of this won't get through the courts, that you will actually lose the legal argument and you won't be able to enact this legislation.
Well, I disagree with that. As I said, we consider our measures to be lawful. We've issued what's called a Section 19(1)(b) statement. That's Section 19(1)(b) of the Human Rights Act. And it was exactly this scenario for which Section 19(1)(b) has been designed. It's been used in the past by the Labour administration, for example. And there's nothing improper, there's nothing unlawful about the statement that we've made. We're just being abundantly cautious. We're being very transparent that, in our view, we do consider our measures to be lawful and we are testing legal arguments.
How much truth is there in the allegation which has surfaced this morning in the media that what we're really seeing here is political theatre? That there is a high probability that this won't actually get past the courts, a bit like the flights to Rwanda, still absolutely mired in legalities. But what you're doing is posturing, really, and sending out a message that you want to be strong and you want to take clear and firm action against illegal immigration to this country, but actually you don't really care whether you get it through or not because you'll have made the gesture.
This is more than a gesture. This is a new law. The partnership with Rwanda is a meaningful and material arrangement with our allies and partners in Rwanda. It's been tested by the courts. I was very pleased to receive the judgment from the High Court at the end of last year, which confirmed that our world-leading partnership with Rwanda is lawful, does comply with our international obligations, despite, I may say, a year ago, many people deriding it as being unlawful. So we were vindicated in the High Court. That's not posturing, that's real fact, and that is reality. So we're going through a legal process. We will respect any timetable set by the court, but I'm confident that we will ultimately be able to deliver our partnership with Rwanda and be able to relocate people who have come here illegally to Rwanda so that they can settle and lead safe and secure lives abroad.
I find it remarkable listening to you, Home Secretary. The High Court declared the scheme legal in December. The ruling is currently under appeal.
Yes, I didn't deny that. So we got, if you read the judgment, it's about 100 pages long, it's an emphatic vindication in the High Court.
But it hasn't been resolved yet.
Well, it's just the first stage. So that is a very important judgment that has informed our policy making. Yes, we are going through an appeal process. There'll be an appeal hearing next month, and we will await to see what the Court of Appeal judges say, and we'll respect any judgment that they reach.
It's not lawful until the final resolution, is it? Meanwhile, the United Nations is calling what you're doing an asylum ban. What has happened to our compassion as a nation?
I'm very proud of our track record of compassion as a nation. In recent years alone, we've welcomed nearly 500,000 people from Ukraine, from Syria, from Afghanistan, from Hong Kong. British people have opened their hearts, and we've, in many instances, opened our homes to welcome people. We've got a very ingrained tradition of compassion and humanitarian protection, and long may that continue.
A tranche of your proposals, we must talk about this, is this proposed cap on immigration to this country, asylum seekers being allowed into this country. You want to put a figure on it, and beyond that figure, no one else can come in on a yearly basis. Can you give us an idea of how many we're talking about? What would that cap be set at? I appreciate that it needs to be discussed, but roughly, what are we talking about?
I don't want to preempt the process, but you're right. We will be institutionalising a form of safe and legal routes. There will be a proper discussion in Parliament and a legitimate vote by Parliament of what that upper limit should be. Importantly, that discussion and that limit will be informed by local authority capacity, housing supply, school places, GP places, so that we can actually take a thoughtful decision before we welcome people. Because it's not fair on people who are being resettled here, but for whom we don't have sufficient accommodation. We've been forced to accommodate people in hotels because we are running out of alternative supply. And staying in a hotel, if you're an asylum seeker, for years on end is not good for them, frankly.
Prime Minister's seeing the French President on Friday. Are they going to come up with an agreement to crack down on these gangs that are smuggling these people across?
I'm very encouraged by our relationship with the French, and I was pleased to strike a deal with my French counterpart, the Interior Minister, last year, which increased cooperation across the Channel between Border Force officers and French officers. We now have a number of British officials working side by side with our French friends to combat the people smuggling gangs, to intercept the departures. And this Friday, you're right, the Prime Minister will be going to France to meet President Macron. I'll be joining him, and we hope to continue our discussion about closer cooperation on the Channel.
All right, Home Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll have to let you go because you've got more interviews to do, but thank you for making your debut appearance on Good Morning Britain on an interesting day. Thank you.